Thank you, Your Honor. City Council members, Tom Grundon, Staff Liaison to the Paradise Path Task Force, and I'd like to introduce Margaret Littlejohn as the chairman of the task force, who's going to discuss the future status of the Paradise Path Task Force with you. Margaret?
Thank you, Tom. Madam Mayor and City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you again and hopefully convince you that the Paradise Path group should become a separate commission rather than stay as a task force or disappear altogether or be put under the Transportation Commission or the Parks and Rec Commission. We just feel that pathways are extremely important in Moscow's future, and I think there are statistics coming out that show how important pathways are, not just here, but in many communities across the country. And even in the Tribune over the weekend, there was an article about how people are driving less miles and are using other means of transportation to get around. And that's true of the younger generations. So we want to be proactive and make sure that pathways play an important role in Moscow, and more than just the linear park pathway that we have established so far. We'd like to see a whole network of pathways all around Moscow, and I think we have both catch-up work to do and also planning for the future as the city continues to grow and develop. And we also have been recently reading in the news that pathways actually add property value to housing units that are nearby or adjacent to a trail. So that is also something to take into consideration, because if we have more pathways through town, then that makes things more friendly for users all over the community to get to work, to school, to shopping opportunities, also for recreation. We also have to remember that 64% of Moscow city residents who took the survey in 2012 said that they wanted off-road pathways in Moscow, that they were high priority or very high priority to them. So we have almost two-thirds of our citizens who participated in that survey saying that they want more pathways. I think it's important to have a standalone commission to oversee the pathways, because I think the pathway system will get lost if it's put under either the Transportation Commission or the Parks and Rec Commission. The pathways by themselves, I think, are a big enough issue that they deserve a standalone commission. And both those two commissions, the Transportation and Parks and Rec, have plenty of agenda items already. Both of their meetings generally last at least 2 hours already. And if we put pathways under them, then that's simply going to add to the tasks that have to be done. And I feel that it would not give pathways the attention they deserve if we were going to make the system fully functional to serve, to connect Moscow. Any questions?
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate your report to the City Council, and as you know, I share those convictions. Do you have a response for the critics who would say there's not enough vim and vigor and enthusiasm within that task force?
Well, I mean, we have been low-key lately because we've been waiting for Moscow on the Move report to get finished. And once it's finished, we're ready to take off and support the priorities that are addressed in that report. And I think we're ready to move forward. Our group has been together for quite some time, and I think we bring a lot of expertise from different backgrounds to the process of developing pathways. We've been working with Dr. Mike Lowrey at the University of Idaho. He's a civil engineering professor, and we actually have a document that we were told that we should put on hold until the transportation, or the Moscow on the Move multimodal plan was finished. So, yes, we've been low-key lately, but that's not due to lack of enthusiasm. I think we have the enthusiasm and the commitment to move forward as soon as we have the go-ahead to do that.
Okay, thank you. You willing to field questions from the council?
Sue?
Yes, Sue?
I guess I wanted to know, it seems like you've had problems having a quorum lately. So how many are supposed to be on the commission, and how many do you have now?
Well, the task force has an unlimited number of members, and we currently have 6, which I mentioned in the letter. I hope you all...
Yeah, I did, but
it was a little bit late, but the letter that I sent this afternoon. So we currently have 6.
And there isn't a finite number like 7 or 9?
No,
Okay.
that's correct.
So what's a quorum?
A quorum would be 4, at least,
At the
by
moment?
the definition that I've been using.
Okay, just checking. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the council for Margaret? Okay. I know we have some other folks here as well. Did we miss anything?
Well, is this an appropriate time for the others to speak?
They'd be welcome to, of course.
Okay. Either of you want to make comments?
And again, we'll have you identify yourself by name and address.
I am Margaret Dibble. I'm here for the second time to speak in favor of keeping the Paradise Path Task Force as an entity. I think being a commission would be nice. I've been thinking about this lately. You know, we have 6 people. Yes, we've had a little trouble getting a quorum, but even days when we haven't had a quorum, we've been out. As Tom remembers, we had a little field trip with 3 of us who went out and looked at the path by the university and the intersections and saw who was coming and going. And we've dragged various people, like in the Transportation Commission. We've tried to drag them out to look at the paths. We've been surveying what we call our orphan paths. And so we have 6 people working on that, even if we don't always have them all at the same time. And to disband the task force and try and parcel those people out on commissions is, I don't know. I'm not a resident of the city of Moscow, although my address is Moscow. So I wouldn't be on a commission. I find that hard to fit in. And I think what you would be doing is losing a lot of very interested and enthusiastic people.
Thank you. Any questions for Margaret? Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak about this?
My name's Judy Brown, and I live at 226 East First Street in Moscow, and I wanted to address briefly the question of our mission, because there's been some discussion of whether it's been broadening or narrowing and so on. And our mission has been extremely broad from the very beginning. And if you read most of the literature that we've put out over the years about the task force, our various brochures and pamphlets and long-range plans and so on, they tend to all use the same language about the Paradise Path being formed for the purposes of creating a path system that would address transportation, recreation, resource enhancement, and conservation, and thereby serve walkers, parents and strollers, bird watchers, as well as commuters. And that language came from a public open house that we held quite early in the life of the task force, back, I believe, in the fall of 1995. And we had a number of questionnaires that we passed around to the public in various ways, and we had several open houses where we asked people who attended to tell us what they wanted from the path and linear park system, and those were the goals that came out of that, and we have stuck to that ever since. And I think that broad mission is still what the public in general wants from the task force. And also, because of that broad mission, I think it underscores why we would lose something if we assigned the task force either to the Transportation Commission, because the mission is broader than just transportation. It's recreation, resource enhancement, and conservation, and so on. And also that we would lose something if it were assigned to the Park Commission, because it is more than a park. It's a very unique kind of park and quite distinct from all of the other parks in the community. And I guess to underscore what Margaret said already, we meet once a month. We spend an hour to an hour and a half talking about issues related specifically to the Paradise Path, and I think that much of that would just get lost if we were assigned either to the Transportation Commission or to the Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Council members have any questions or comments? Yes, Walter?
I have a question for Margaret, if I may. You said you were told to put on hold a document y'all were working on. Was that the orphan pass work, or?
No, that was actually a document that Dr. Mike Lowrey's class produced.
But that was presented to council, wasn't it? Where did I see it? The one where you have the path under Steiner. You had a connection up at Mountain View. You had a third one somewhere else.
Yeah, and we actually had a ring pathway around the city.
I don't remember that part, but we had Mike Lowrey stand right at that podium. I remember that. Tom, when was that?
Somewhere in the last 12 to 18 months, but some of that was related to a
Use
prior...
the microphone a little bit there, Tom. That's it, please.
I'm not sure the exact date, Walter, in the last 12 to 18 months, but and that may have been related to a list of priorities that the task force had put together and brought to the commission on one occasion. And then
I think it was.
Right, but the specific that Margaret's referring to is the Highway 8 underpass. If it comes out recommended in the Transportation Commission plan, the Moscow on the Move, that will then be a focus item.
Okay, so it was specifically related to the underpass item.
Correct.
Yes. And the broader planning for the future, we have not yet presented to you. And we haven't even, we've put it on hold because we knew the multimodal plan or the Moscow on the Move plan was coming out, and so we wanted to see what they were proposing before we also proposed something different that maybe wasn't in alignment with that.
Walter?
Would it not have been appropriate for the task force to proceed with their priorities and interests, attempting to influence the consultant on the overall transportation plan, as opposed to laying back and seeing what they gave you to work with?
We have a representative that's been participating in the Moscow on the Move planning team. So she is expressing our opinions there. But we weren't far enough along on this plan. We hadn't had time to go out and look at the options that were proposed in Mike Lowrey's student plan for what the future holds. I mean, we hadn't had time to do the research on how quickly Moscow is growing, when we should look at an inner ring and an outer ring trail. So, I mean, we just weren't far enough along on that to, and I actually don't know whether our representative on the multimodal planning team, whether she has expressed any of that information to the group.